The first one, Kimi, is DeAndre Swift. And we talked about the rookie running backs coming into this season. And so far, we've seen good things from Jonathan Taylor. We've seen good things from Clyde Edwards-Helaire. DeAndre Swift was the other guy at the top of this running back draft class. So far, we have seen very little from him. In fact, on Sunday, barely got on the field, had about 5 snaps for the Detroit Lions. Adrian Peterson was getting all of the work. You see the numbers there. 1 catch for 19 yards for DeAndre Swift. That was it. So is it time to let him go, or can we still exercise some patience?
I'm saying bye to DeAndre Swift. There was a lot of hype, as you said, but he just hasn't been performing. Obviously, he is kind of used in the passing game, but he's clearly not the preferred goal line back, which is what you want in terms of fantasy football, especially at the running back position. So I feel like if I do have him on my squad, I'm putting him on the waivers to see what I can do or what kind of trade I can get him for. But really disappointing. It's sad. But I do have shares of Adrian Peterson, and so I'm happy about that.
Who would have thought that in the year 2020 that Adrian Peterson would still be out there fantasy relevant, but he's getting opportunities in Matt Patricia's offense, and he's playing relatively well, and he has made DeAndre Swift very much an afterthought, and it's getting a lot harder to justify, at least in seasonal leagues, keeping him on your roster. Maybe in Dynasty, you can still put him on the bench and hope for good things in the future, but in seasonal, especially if you're off to a slow start, it's just getting harder and harder to hold on to him. We talked about the Bengals and their passing game and what T. Higgins did yesterday. A.J. Green, a lot of people spent sort of a middle round pick on him, hoping that he would be the A.J. Green of old. Instead, right now, he just looks like old A.J. Green. And you have to wonder, Kimi, is this time for us to say goodbye to a guy who was a longtime fantasy favorite?
You know, previous to talking about the Bengals with you earlier this morning, I said, I think I'm going to hold on to A.J. Green for another week or two. But you really did kind of make the case for T. Higgins taking it in and usurping A.J. Green and really taking that wide receiver 2 position. Again, T. Higgins, he showed up. He had a huge game. He got 2 touchdowns, the only 2 touchdowns thrown by Joe Burrow in that Sunday matchup. A.J. Green, he's really not seeing the field a lot. He's not getting targets. He's not getting a share of the ball. So because of that, you kind of convinced me earlier. I think it's time to fade him away and say goodbye to A.J. Green and instead buy into T. Higgins.
8 catches, 80 yards for the season. He had 5 for 36 on Sunday. And just watching this highlight reel here, I mean, you just see so many short routes, so many underneath routes that they are not using A.J. Green to stretch the field. And so for that, even with a large target share, he's got to make a lot of catches and maybe hopefully somehow break one, get some yards after the catch. Right now, this passing game just does not seem set up for A.J. Green to have some big weeks. That's not to say he won't have one at some point during the season. It just seems like they may be a lot more rare than we're used to seeing as this offense sort of trends now toward Tyler Boyd and potentially T. Higgins. So with so much depth at wide receiver, I think it's okay to put A.J. Green out there on the waiver wire and try to find some help from somewhere else. At tight end, I think we all knew that Austin Hooper was going to see a decline going from Atlanta to Cleveland because there were so many more targets to spread the ball around to there. But you figure that maybe without David Njoku in the short term, that would help Austin Hooper. But again, didn't get you much on Sunday in the game for the Browns against the Washington football team. We talked about some tight end potential in Jimmy Graham. So I feel like that makes it sort of easy to say goodbye to Austin Hooper.
I was just going to say, obviously you mentioned Jimmy Graham earlier. Last year, Dalton Schultz showed up for the Cowboys. There are other streaming tight end options, and Austin Hooper sadly is not one of them. He caught 3 of 4 targets for 25 yards. And though he's playing 86% of the snaps, he doesn't have a large role in the Browns game because they're running the ball almost 60% of the time. So just because he's on the football field, that does not mean he's getting any type of opportunity. Again, though Kevin Stefanski does like to have a 2 tight end run offense, he's not utilizing them whatsoever. The Browns have kind of been a disaster. Again, Baker Mayfield, he really needs to focus on getting the ball to Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr. So I feel like all of his focus is there and not on Austin Hooper. So it's time to fade him. There are other tight ends that have better flashes of opportunity, and they are actually playing the snaps and they're actually getting the target share as well. So Austin Hooper, it's a sad fate for me.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, you would have been way better off starting Mo Alley Cox over the last couple of weeks than Austin Hooper. I mean, Alley Cox still had back-to-back double-digit games. Austin Hooper is struggling to find anything in that Cleveland offense, and I don't think it's going to get better anytime soon. One more tight end, Evan Engram, who had a poor week 1, a pretty decent week 2 and then fell back and didn't do much in week 3 against the 49ers. This one seems a little bit less clear, Kimi, because Engram has not played well, but we know the role he occupies in this Giants offense. But are you fed up? Have you had enough? Or are you willing to sort of give him the benefit of the doubt?
I'm going to pump the brakes on this one because, again, obviously Saquon Barkley is injured. He's out for the rest of the season. The New York Giants need all of the help that they can get on the offensive side of the ball, and I really do think Evan Engram may just be one of those only offensive targets that they do have to get any type of red zone carries or red zone targets so that they can score and be competitive in all of their matchups. Now, though he's only had 5 targets for 3 receptions and 22 yards, Daniel Jones needs to redevelop that relationship with Engram and redevelop it very, very, very quickly. Now, I do have shares of Engram, so maybe I'm just being biased, but he is a streaming option at the tight end position for me because I have other guys like a Travis Kelce or a George Kittle, and during those bye weeks, I can put Evan Engram in. However, I'm going to hold on to him. I'm going to wait to see what happens in the next few weeks. And then if he doesn't step up, I think then no one wants any shares of any part of this Giants offense. And then we have to repivot and figure out what to do.
Yeah, I still want to believe. I still want to hold on to Evan Engram. So I'm not ready to put him back on the waiver wire just yet. But man, time is getting short. You need him to start performing. The Giants need him to start performing. The matchup against the Rams next week, not necessarily one to get you excited, but I'm still willing to keep the faith and hope that things come around for Evan Engram and the Big Blue passing game.